a few minutes before Lu Sheng arrived on the scene, under the cloudy and moonless night that seemed to be perfect for any sinister deeds that were about to be committed tonight. The man was sprinting as fast as he could before being struck hard by the massive debris on the back. Despite all of this happening, he still held the little girl tightly, trying his best to prevent her from getting hurt. However, the next moment, he coughed out blood and collapsed to the ground, enduring the pain while fighting to stay conscious. The little girl, lying beside him with tears streaming down her face, clung to his arm while shaking her arm, continuously crying out, "Daddy, Daddy, are you okay?" The man trembled all over, crawling forward with the little girl in his arms despite all his injuries. The woman suddenly appeared behind them, her smile gradually widening as if pleased by the scene. The next moment, she stomped on the man's knee, and the sound of cracking bones echoed loudly as his kneecap shattered. What followed was blood soaking through his pants. What's worse was she then twisted her high heel on his injuries. The man let out a scream, so loud that could be heard from afar, which only further fueled the woman's excitement. The little girl, tears unabated, broke free from the man's grasp, sobbingly as she stood up to the woman, her fists clenched, punching her little fists on her thigh while telling her to quit hurting her father. However, with an agonizing and desperate expression, the man weakly told her to stop. The little girl, still trying futilely to hit the woman with her tiny fists, was effortlessly lifted by the woman using a single hand. She tightly grabbed onto the child's head, causing her to cry out in pain. The woman, holding the little girl, cruelly suggested to the man that he could still run on his hands, offering him 10 minutes this time, clearly wanting to prolong the cat-and-mouse game. In agony, the man, with his legs grotesquely bent, turned to face the woman, biting back his pain. He tried his last attempt to negotiate, promising to hand over whatever she wanted if she would only let his daughter go. The man explained that the thing she was looking for was all memorized in his head, and no one else in the world knew except him. He clenched his teeth while threatening to consume the poison hidden within his tooth, and would bite on it if the woman continued to pressure him. Just as he thought his threat would hold some sway, he was shocked when the woman effortlessly reached into his mouth and extracted the poisoned tooth. Along with several others, several of his teeth were forcefully removed. The man didn't even scream out with pain, since he was already so horrified by her ruthlessness. The woman's expression turned even more icy cold, but she mockingly asked if he truly believed he had the chance to kill himself. Her gaze then shifted to the crying little girl in her grasp. With one hand pinching the girl's mouth and the other holding the poisoned tooth near, she continued to threaten the man. The man's face went pale as he struggled to stand, ultimately bowing his head and agreeing to reveal the information, pleading for the woman to let his daughter go. It was at this time that we returned to the present time, exactly when Lu Sheng appeared, capturing the woman's attention. She was puzzled to see someone at this time and place, recognizing him as the young man she had encountered at the hotel. Just as the man was about to divulge his secrets, Lu Sheng vanished, reappearing the next second to whisk the little girl away from the woman's grasp. To the woman's astonishment, Lu Sheng was already 100 meters away without her noticing. She blurted out in surprise. However, she thought she was simply caught off guard. Lu Sheng, observing the dire state of the middle-aged man on the ground and the helpless crying little girl, felt a pang of guilt for not arriving sooner. His gaze meets the woman, disgusted by her brutality towards even a child. Regardless of her reasons, to treat a father and child like this is more than just a monster act. Such merciless behavior disqualified her from any honor associated with being a grandmaster. The little girl, now feeling a sense of safety in Lu Sheng's arms, looked up at him with pleading eyes, perhaps wanting to beg him to save her father. Lu Sheng smiled reassuringly at her, nodded his head, and set her down, advising her to a safer spot. The woman, witnessing this scene, questioned if Lu Sheng was affiliated with the Dark Star, though internally, she doubted his strength due to his lack of a grandmaster's aura and his youthful appearance. Lu Sheng had never heard of the Dark Star, and had no idea what it was. Either way, it didn't matter for now. After contemplating for a moment, he simply shook his head. In the blink of an eye, he was already behind the woman, causing her pupils to contract due to his astonishing speed. The intense sense of life-threatening danger escalated wildly within her as she felt an overwhelming force grabbing her, immobilizing her completely. Perhaps, she felt exactly what Genos felt when Saitama showed his true strength. However, she isn't as lucky as Genos. In the next moment, Lu Sheng's hand grabbed onto her face, and with a swift motion, he slammed her into the cement ground, creating a significant dent. The woman felt excruciating pain, and before she could utter another word, Lu Sheng didn't give her a chance to speak, and repeatedly smashed her head into the ground, each impact stronger than the last, causing even the entire factory to tremble. After ensuring the woman was completely done for, as the great man that he is, he treats men and women the same. Lu Sheng simply dusted off his hands, remarking on how weak she was. He then shifted his gaze to the father and daughter, causing the middle-aged man to blink out of his daze. He was unable to comprehend how a top assassin from the Loop Seal organization was effortlessly defeated by this young man. At the same time, the little girl, now hiding behind her father, looked curiously at Lu Sheng, as if the superheroes from her favorite cartoon have come to life. The man, realizing something, hastily offered to divulge the location of a secret mineral mine in exchange for their lives. Before the man could reveal the coordinates, Lu Sheng gestured dismissively while waving his hands, and began to walk away, clearly uninterested in this so-called secret mineral mine. The man was shocked. He didn't understand why Lu Sheng had intervened if he didn't want the coordinates. Lu Sheng explained he was merely passing by and acted out of a sense of justice. He then left without further explanation. He was thinking to himself that in the dream realm, he had access to all sorts of locations for herbs, minerals, and rare resources. Thus, he was not interested in the man's information, and the potential trouble it may bring later. As Lu Sheng departed, the middle-aged man, wanting to say more, could only watch as Lu Sheng disappeared into the darkness. The man then turned to the little girl beside him, who, despite tear stains on her cheeks, smiled, telling her daddy that big brother is very strong. The man affectionately patted his daughter's head, remarking that Lu Sheng was a bit odd, but undoubtedly a great person. Suddenly, the man coughed up a large amount of blood. The adrenaline from earlier had worn off. He used his last bit of energy to alarm the girl, telling her that his legs are severely injured and his spine damaged. There was no way he can make it back to the city. Despite the pain, he tried his best to let out a smile at his daughter. He didn't think he would make it tonight, and urged her to flee and protect herself from now on. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, a figure unexpectedly returned. Lu Sheng lifted the man onto his shoulders, which puzzled the man and delighted the little girl. Lu Sheng let out a sigh and figured since he had already intervened, he might as well see it through to the end. Back at the hotel, he offered a healing supplement to the man, alleviating much of his pain, followed by another potion for complete recovery in just a couple of days. The man gratefully looked at Lu Sheng, and then turned to let the little girl go to bed first, wanting to speak further with Lu Sheng. After the girl obediently nodded and walked away, Lu Sheng presented a ring, which seemed like a token of some sort that he had found on the female assassin. The ring was made of a very rare mineral. The man then explained to Lu Sheng that the woman came from an organization known as Loop Seal, and the Dark Star she mentioned, both of which are mysterious international organizations with unclear objectives, but active members across the globe, with plenty of members just like the female Grandmaster Assassin, as well as great grandmasters and even martial saints among their ranks. The woman was after the location of the secret mineral mine the man knew of. Lu Sheng digested the information. However, he wasn't very surprised. In any era, there are various organizations, good and bad, some exceedingly powerful. He planned to research this organization further in the Dream Realm Fire Seed program. He then focused on how to resolve the situation with the father and daughter properly. He asked the man about his future plans. With a wry smile, the man shook his head, uncertain of what to do next. Deeply, he wished to ask for Lu Sheng's help, but hesitated to impose any more trouble. However, after a moment of thought, Lu Sheng came up with a potentially permanent solution to their current situation. The man, initially startled, quickly asked Lu Sheng for details, eager for any solution that could help him and his daughter escape the pursuit. He looked anxious, yet hopeful. Lu Sheng simply asked for the exact location of the mine. Despite his surprise, the man complied, pinpointing the location on his phone. After some additional tapping and swiping on the smartphone, Lu Sheng reassured him that everything would be all right now. The man, confused, saw that Lu Sheng appeared to only swiping on his phone for the last minute or so, and wondered about what he exactly did. Lu Sheng then showed him the phone screen, and as it turned out, he had posted the mine's location online for everyone to see. Lu Sheng knew the man's only value to those organizations was his knowledge of the mine's exact location. By making this information public, they would no longer expend resources to capture him, nor would they have any reason to trouble him further. The man was shocked and speechless. He wasn't sure if Lu Sheng was unaware of the mine's value, or perhaps he simply didn't care. A whirlwind of thoughts flooded the man's mind, leaving him utterly bewildered. Meanwhile, in an organization's underground monitoring center, operatives noticed that the signal from their agent, known as the Ninth Seal, had gone dark, indicating she might be in trouble. Reporting to their superiors, they speculated that the Ninth Seal might have been caught off guard by the mission, since it's also logical that the man might have hired grandmasters as bodyguards. Besides the monitors, there was a bald, middle-aged man, presumably 2 scientists, alongside several men in a lab coat. Just as they were about to discuss the situation further, another agent stumbled upon the mine's location, now viral online for everyone to see, creating a buzz in the room. Witnessing this unexpected turn of events, everyone in the room exchanged bewildered glances, unable to fathom why someone would publicly disclose the mine's location. The loss of so many of their members' lives for the sake of securing this mine now seemed in vain. One of them wondered were those sacrifices for nothing. A man sitting at the back of the room slammed his hand down on the armrest of his chair. A cyan halo hovered over his head as he sneered, remarking on the surprise move by whoever decided to do this. Clenching his fists, he acknowledged that with the mine's location now known to all, the middle-aged man who knew its location no longer held any value. Yet he was convinced that the man wouldn't have dared to take such a step on his own. There could only be one answer. Someone must be guiding him from behind the scenes. In a fit of rage, he ordered his subordinates to find and make an example of the person bold enough to mock the loop seal and leak the secret. Back at the hotel, the man took out his damaged but still functioning phone, which clearly wasn't an Apple device, given its resilience. Viewing the comments under the post about the mine's location, it was evident that everyone was already on the move. He looked at Lu Sheng again, puzzled by how a mine worth hundreds of billions seemed insignificant to this young man. What exactly was his background? Lu Sheng, unaware of the man's thoughts, simply advised him to move to a new location with his daughter after checking out in a few days, assuring him that the storm stirred by the mine would soon pass, and then they would be safe. Wishing them luck, Lu Sheng was about to leave when the little girl, with tears in her eyes, asked if she would see big brother Lu Sheng again. At the doorway, Lu Sheng gently patted her head, perhaps just wanting to comfort the little girl. He reassured her that they would, indeed, meet again, bringing a bright smile to her face. The next day, in the suburban area of White Lake City, in an abandoned factory, a group of men stopped outside the factory. Seeing the aftermath, several men in suits stepped out and quickly found a deep pit with a body lying inside. The voice of the speaker trembled as they noted that the woman inside was no doubt the Ninth Seal. However, she seemed to be overpowered and appeared to have had no chance to resist. Their eyes were drawn to the huge crater indented deeply into the ground. The pit was so profound it seemed as though a pile driver had been used, making it hard to believe it was created by physical force alone. Exchanging glances and gulping hard, they could only imagine what horrifying scene happened here. Just thinking about it made their scalps tingling. There are only 2 words that can describe this: too brutal, too violent. One hesitantly suggested whether they should continue their pursuit. Another quickly shook his head, considering even a genetically enhanced martial artist using beast genes like the Ninth Seal to end up like this, and with the mine's location already public, it was just going to be a suicide mission if they continued to investigate. With this thought, they hurriedly returned to their car and drove back the way they came, deciding to stay away from this devil as far as they could. Meanwhile, in the dream realm, Lu Sheng asked Yi to pull up information on these organizations and discovered not just the Dark Star and Loop Seal, but also another called the Black Demon Society. To his surprise, there were dozens of such international mysterious organizations of various sizes, some only existing for a few decades, while others had persisted for nearly 10,000 years of martial arts history, all with active traces. Moreover, aside from grandmasters and great-grandmasters, some of these large organizations like Loop Seal even had martial saints among their ranks. This puzzled Lu Sheng, considering martial saints were the strongest individuals in any country during this time, notoriously difficult to cultivate, and generally disdainful of joining such organizations. He speculated there must be the backing of various corporations and countries behind these groups. As he delved deeper, something caught his interest. As it turned out, the Loop Seal organization was dedicated to researching genetically enhanced martial artists using beast genes, which they called mutated martial artists. This not only caused several international incidents, but also led to joint manhunts by various countries. Mutated martial artists? He murmured to himself. This was a term he hadn't heard before. As he read more about these so-called mutated martial artists, he found out that they were described as warriors augmented with beast genes, resulting in strength significantly higher than the average martial artists among their level, in rare cases, tenfold or more. However, these advantages came with dangerous downsides. These mutated warriors faced the risk of physical and mental corruption by the beast genes, potentially turning into a monster at any moment. Recalling the assassin he encountered the day before, Lu Sheng had felt something was off back then, and now it made sense that the assassin had begun using this technology. He also remembered the recent level 7 beast incident a few days ago and sensed a possible connection between these events. Ultimately, he shook his head, believing that the higher echelons of government were not fools and likely already investigating. It wasn't his place to meddle further. If he encountered such threats, he'd deal with them as necessary. But the research into mutated warriors intrigued him. Following his curiosity, Lu Sheng also searched for information about the middle-aged man and his daughter. As he expected, the father and daughter were no longer pursued and lived safely without encountering any further danger. Not only that, to his surprise, the little girl achieved significant accomplishments as she grew up. She became the head of the International Crime Investigation Department, also became an 8th-level great-grandmaster who dedicated her life to tracking down organizations like Loop Seal, Dark Star, and the Black Demon Society. She personally killed or incarcerated over 800 members of such organizations. This made Lu Sheng surprised, wondering if he accidentally saved a future great-grandmaster. Either way, he was happy for the little girl considering great-grandmasters were very rare in this era. However, Lu Sheng was utterly taken aback as he continued reading when he read that the girl remained unmarried her entire life, harboring an unrequited love for none other than the perfect martial saint. He was at a loss for words. Well, the perfect martial saint was no other than himself. Lu Sheng immediately shakes off the sudden image of the crying little girl who quietly sitting on the floor eating chips, hastily waved off everything. He attempted to clear his mind of these chaotic thoughts. With a deep breath, he calmed himself, deciding it was time to deal with Li and Ya, aka the scum father and son duo. In the next scene, Lu Sheng finds himself on an old street, entering a decrepit residential building. He quickly finds the room supposedly where the victim's father lived. The door was soon opened by a weary-looking middle-aged woman. Surveying Lu Sheng with a mix of suspicion, she asked who he was and why is he there. After Lu Sheng mentioned the name of the man he was looking for, the woman quickly denied knowing him and attempted to close the door. Lu Sheng, realizing something was odd and perhaps there was a misunderstanding, blocked the door with his foot, causing the woman to retreat in fear. He tried to reassure her gently, reiterated the name, and asked the woman again, but only to be yelled at, as she claimed that the man no longer lived there and that the apartment was now hers, threatening to call the police if Lu Sheng didn't leave.
This is Relax. This